He traded his family for silence until he saw his daughter take her first steps in someone else's arms. If you like stories like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel. We post every day, continuing. The silence of the London dawn was broken only by the intermittent crying of Sophia, who at 8 months had still not found a sleep rhythm that brought peace to the house. Isabella got up for the 4th time that night, her bare feet touching the cold floor of the apartment that had once been the symbol of a life being built together, but which now echoed only her solitary steps. As she picked up her daughter, she felt the familiar weight of responsibility that had become exclusively hers. Raphael had left 3 months ago, claiming he needed space to think, that the pressure of business was unbearable, and that the baby's constant crying only worsened his mental state. At the time, Isabella still believed it would be temporary, that he would return when he managed to organize his thoughts, when the company stabilized, when Sophia stopped crying so much. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. His sporadic messages dwindled until they were reduced to automatic bank transfers and a deafening silence that screamed louder than any argument they had ever had. Isabella looked at her daughter, whose large, dark eyes seemed to question where the man who should be there, holding her 2-packs, was. Sophia had her father's eyes, the same intensity of gaze that had once captivated Isabella in the corridors of the London criminal courts, when Raphael was still just an entrepreneur who needed legal advice, and she was a judge determined not to mix personal and professional life. How things had changed since then. "Shh, my love," she whispered to Sophia, walking through the spacious living room where colorful toys contrasted with the minimalist decor Raphael so cherished. "Mummy's here. Mummy will always be here." It was a promise she made every day, not just to her daughter, but to herself. An affirmation of strength she needed to repeat to believe that she could bear the weight of being a single mother, a judge, and a woman all at once, without letting any of these identities completely fragment. The phone vibrated on the coffee table, a message from Raphael. "Transferred the money for school tuition and health insurance. How is she?" Isabella stared at the screen for long minutes, Sophia finally falling asleep in her arms. How was she? Sophia was growing, developing personality, smiling when she saw cartoons, trying to crawl around the apartment, pronouncing her first attempts at mama. Sophia was fine, despite her father's glaring absence, but the question Raphael should ask was, "How are you both?" Because Isabella knew he asked about Sophia as if she were a medical report, not as someone genuinely interested in his daughter's development. "She's fine," she replied simply, putting the phone away without waiting for a response. She placed Sophia in her crib and went to the kitchen to prepare some tea. The nightly ritual had become her moment of reflection, when she allowed her thoughts to flow without the need to maintain the strong posture the day demanded. She remembered their last argument, 2 weeks before he left. Sophia had cried for 3 hours straight, seemingly for no reason, and Raphael had exploded. "I can't take this anymore, Isabella. I can't think, I can't work, I can't even sleep properly. How can you stay so calm with this constant crying?" "Because I'm her mother," she had replied simply. "C'est because when you truly love someone, you learn to deal with discomfort." The comment had sounded more acidic than she intended, but also more honest than anything she had said in recent months. "Are you implying that I don't love my daughter?" "I'm saying that love isn't just a feeling, Raphael. It's action. It's presence. It's waking up in the middle of the night without complaining because she needs you." He had left that night to clear his head, and only returned a week later to pack his bags. Now, stirring her tea in the mug he had given her on their first dating anniversary. "To the strongest woman I know," was written in faded gold letters. Isabella wondered if she really was as strong as he thought, or if she had just learned to be out of necessity. The apartment in Kensington, with a privileged view of the park, had been chosen by both of them as the ideal place to start a family. Spacious, with 2 bedrooms, a master suite, and an office where Raphael could work on days when he didn't go to the city centre. Now, half the rooms remained empty, echoes of a life project that fragmented before it was even fully built. Isabella had transformed his office into a makeshift playroom, not out of anger or an attempt to erase his presence, but out of practical necessity. Sophia needed space to grow, and she needed to reorganize her life around this new reality. The tea was still steaming when the phone rang. It was her sister, Camilla, calling from Manchester. "Isa, sorry about the time. I know you must be in bed, but I couldn't sleep thinking about you both." Camilla was 4 years younger, single, and fully dedicated to her career as a public prosecutor. She had visited London the previous month and been shocked to see how thin Isabella had become and how she carried a deep sadness in her eyes, despite maintaining a smile whenever Sophia was around. "Hi, Cammy. I just put Sophia to sleep. How are you? The question is how you are, and I won't accept a fine art as an answer." Isabella smiled for the first time that day. Camilla always managed to extract an honesty from her that she rarely allowed herself. "I'm tired," she admitted, sitting on the sofa where she used to watch movies with Raphael on weekends. "Not just physically. I'm tired of waiting, tired of pretending everything is fine, tired of justifying his absence to myself. And what are you going to do?" The question hung in the air like a court judgment awaiting a verdict. Isabella knew the rational answer, the answer she would give to any woman who came to her chambers reporting a similar situation. But applying her own legal wisdom to her personal life was more complex than any case she had ever judged. "I'm going to continue being Sophia's mother. I'm going to continue being a judge. And I'm going to stop waiting for him to become the man I thought he was." Does that mean? It means it might be time to formalize what has been a reality for months. They talked for another hour, Camilla offering all the emotional and logistical support needed. She had grown up admiring her older sister's strength, but now realized that Isabella needed to allow herself to be vulnerable, needed to accept help without seeing it as weakness. When she hung up the phone, Isabella went to Sophia's room to check if she was sleeping peacefully. The girl had moved in her sleep and was now on her stomach, her tiny fists clenched as if fighting nightmares she was not yet old enough to comprehend. As she adjusted the blanket, Isabella noticed something different. Sophia had pushed herself up on her hands and lifted her chest off the bed in a clear attempt to crawl. The movement was clumsy, instinctive, but determined. "You're growing, my love," she murmured, stroking her daughter's curly hair. "And I'm learning that growing up sometimes means leaving behind what no longer serves us." The next morning, as she prepared for another day in court, Isabella made a decision that had been maturing for weeks. She called Dr. Henry Mortimer, a family law specialist lawyer she knew from the courthouse corridors. "Henry, I need to talk to you about a personal matter." "Of course, Judge Isabella. Would you like to schedule an appointment at my office?" "I'd prefer something more discreet. Could it be at your private practice?" Henry immediately understood the tone of the conversation. He had known Isabella professionally for years, knew her reputation as a strict but fair judge, and also knew Raphael by sight, knowing they were married. "I can see you today, if it's urgent." "It is urgent," she confirmed, looking at Sophia playing in her stroller next to her bed. "I need to understand my rights and the best strategies to protect my daughter." The meeting was scheduled for late afternoon. Isabella spent the day in court judging cases of child support, shared custody, and contested divorces, an irony that did not go unnoticed. Each situation she analyzed seemed a distorted mirror of her own life. Each decision she made echoed the choices she needed to make regarding her own future. During her lunch break, she received an unexpected call from Raphael. "Isa, how are you both?" The question, asked with a casual tone that tried to mask months of absence, deeply irritated her. "We're fine, Raphael. Sophia is developing her motor skills, trying to crawl. Yesterday she stood up alone for a few seconds." "That's good. I'm happy to hear that." The silence that followed was heavy, laden with everything they weren't saying. "Raphael, why are you calling? Can't I call to see how my family is?" "Your family?" The word came out sharper than she intended. "Your family has been here for months waiting for you to decide whether or not you want to be a part of it. Isabella, you know things are complicated. The company is going through a restructuring. The Japanese investors are pressuring me, and I need a clear head to make the right decisions." "And you really believe that running away from your daughter is having a clear head?" "I didn't run away. I just needed space to—" "For what, Raphael?" "To pretend you don't have a family, to live as if you were single, to not have to wake up in the middle of the night when she cries." "It's not that simple." "It is exactly that simple." Isabella looked out the window of her chambers, seeing the movement of the city that continued independently of everyone's personal dramas. You choose to be present or not. You choose to be a father or not. You choose to fight for the family we created or not. Everything else is an excuse. Raphael was silent for a time that seemed eternal. Isa, You what? I miss you both. The confession came out low, almost whispered, laden with a vulnerability she hadn't heard in months. For an instant, Isabella felt her heart soften, remembering the man she had fallen in love with, who cried when he found out he was going to be a father, who painted Sophia's room with his own hands. But the memory lasted only an instant. Missing us is different from wanting to come back, Raphael, and wanting to come back is different from being willing to change. Maybe we can talk. I can stop by this weekend to see Sophia. Of course. You can visit her, but don't expect me to pretend everything is normal between us. When she hung up, Isabella realized she was trembling, not from anger, but from something she took a while to identify. Hope. A small, cautious hope that perhaps Raphael was finally ready to mature, but she also knew that hope without action was just an illusion. And she had learned, in recent months, that she could no longer base her happiness and Sophia's stability on illusions. In the afternoon at Henry's office, Isabella presented her situation with the objectivity of someone accustomed to dealing with legal matters, but with the emotion of someone living that reality firsthand. I want to understand all my options, Henry, from an amicable separation to a custody battle, if necessary. Henry listened attentively, asking pertinent questions and explaining the legal nuances of each possibility. Isabella, from your description, you have a relatively simple case in legal terms. There are no issues of domestic violence, no complex property disputes, and Raphael seems to be fulfilling his financial obligations. The problem isn't financial, Henry. It's emotional. It's the absence. It's Sophia growing up without a present father. And do you believe that a legal formalization could motivate him to be more present, or the opposite? It was a question Isabella had been asking herself for weeks. She knew Raphael well enough to know that legal pressure could either make him take responsibility or push him away completely. Honestly, I don't know. But I know I can't keep living in emotional limbo, waiting for him to decide if he wants to be a father and husband. Henry prepared the basic documents, a preliminary separation agreement, and the papers to request sole custody, if necessary. Documents that Isabella took home as if carrying the weight of a decision that would forever change the trajectory of her family. That night, after putting Sophia to sleep, Isabella sat in the kitchen with the papers in front of her and a mug of coffee that grew cold as she read each clause, each legal term that would officially document the reality she had been living for months. When she finally lay down, it was past midnight. But for the first time in a long time, Isabella slept deeply, with the feeling of someone who had taken control of her own life, regardless of Raphael's choices. The contract Raphael had just signed was worth £52 million, the biggest deal in the history of the company he had built from scratch at 25, with just a laptop and a revolutionary idea about integrated logistics for British agribusiness. Now at 34, he owned one of the largest consulting firms in the sector in the country, with offices in London, Manchester, and a new branch opening in Dubai. But while the Japanese investors celebrated in the hotel bar, toasting with sake and talking in English about growth projections, Raphael found himself alone in his apartment in Canary Wharf, looking out from the 20th floor window at the city lights that seemed as distant as his own life. The apartment was everything a successful man could want: minimalist design by a renowned architect, panoramic view, state-of-the-art sound system, climate-controlled wine cellar with wines from all over the world, but it was also too silent, too clean, too empty. He hadn't seen Sophia in 4 months. 4 months since he had left the house in Kensington, claiming he needed time to think, to organize the company's finances, to focus on business without the constant pressure of being a father and husband at the same time. The truth, which he found hard to admit to himself, was raw. He had run away from the crying that made him anxious, from the rigid schedules a child imposes, from the responsibility of being an example for someone so small and dependent. He had also run away from Isabella's gaze, which could read him like no one else, which perceived his despair even when he tried to hide it. During these months, He had convinced himself that he was doing the right thing, that working intensely, ensuring financial stability and professional growth was his way of caring for his family. That Isabella, a strong and independent woman, could handle Sophia better than he could handle both of them. But that night, after the euphoria of the signed contract, after the congratulations from his partners and the feeling of professional victory, Raphael realized that he was completely empty. He picked up his phone and looked at the photos of Sophia that Isabella sent sporadically. The last one was from a week ago. Sophia sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by toys, smiling at the camera with two tiny teeth showing in her gums. She had grown so much in so little time. Her hair was fuller, curly like her mother's. Her face had lost that newborn look and gained more defined features. She was his daughter, but he felt like a stranger looking at photos of an unknown child. The feeling of emptiness intensified when he realized he knew nothing about Sophia's routine anymore. He didn't know if she still woke up in the middle of the night, if she was already eating solid foods, if she was crawling, if she spoke any words. He didn't know if Isabella was well, if she had returned to work normally, if she needed help with anything other than the money he religiously transferred every week. He had become a child support payer, without even being officially separated. The thought hit him like a punch to the stomach. He got up from the Italian leather sofa and walked to the bar, pouring himself a shot of Scotch whiskey that cost more than the monthly salary of many British people. But the liquid went down bitter, as if carrying the taste of his own cowardice. He looked at the clock. 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Sophia should be sleeping by now, and Isabella would probably be reading or preparing some case for the next day. The routine he had abandoned continued without him, and this realization was more painful than any admission of professional failure. He grabbed his car keys without thinking much about what he would do. He just knew he needed to see Sophia, to see Isabella, to understand what his family had become in his absence. The drive from Canary Wharf to Kensington had never seemed so long. In the London traffic, he had time to question the impulsive decision, to imagine how he would be received, to prepare the words he would say. But when he finally stopped in front of the building where he had lived the two happiest and most intense years of his life, he realized there were no adequate words for 4 months of absence. He went up in the elevator with his heart pounding, as if he were a teenager going on a first date. But when he rang the doorbell, it was Isabella who answered, and the expression on her face showed no surprise, anger, or joy, just a cutting coldness he didn't recognize. "Raphael." "Hi, Isa. Can I come in?" She scrutinized him for a few seconds before stepping away from the door, allowing him to enter. The apartment was different. The office had become a playroom, the living room had a colorful rug on the floor, and there were photographs of Sophia everywhere, milestones he had missed. "She's sleeping," Isabella said, closing the door behind him. "If you came to see her, you'll have to wait." Her tone was polite but distant, as if speaking to an acquaintance, not the man who had been her husband, her partner, the father of her daughter. "Actually, I came to see both of you, to talk." "Talk?" Isabella repeated the word as if testing its taste. "Interesting. 4 months ago you said you needed space to think. Have you managed to organize your thoughts yet?" Raphael looked around, noticing the details that confirmed how life had gone on without him. There was a pediatrician's appointment schedule stuck to the fridge, Sophia's clothes hanging on the drying rack in the utility area, a high chair he didn't remember buying. "Isa, I know I made mistakes. I know my absence was—" "Your absence was a choice, Raphael." She sat on the sofa, but didn't invite him to do the same. "It wasn't a mistake, it wasn't an accident. It was a conscious decision to abandon your family when things got difficult." The accusation was precise like a legal judgment, and Raphael had no arguments to contest it. "You're right, it was a choice, a cowardly choice. And now, what has changed for you to decide to come back?" Raphael hesitated. He could talk about the millionaire contract he had signed, about how professional success had proven empty without a family to share it with. He could talk about the sleepless nights thinking about them, about how he had realized he was missing the most important moments of Sophia's life. But he opted for the rawest honesty. "Today I signed the biggest contract of my career, £52 million, and when it was time to celebrate, I had no one to call. No one who understood what that meant to me. No one who was genuinely happy for my success. Isabella listened without interrupting, with the same attention she dedicated to testimonies in court. I realized I built a successful company, but I destroyed my family, and I realized I'd rather be a family man than a lonely businessman. Beautiful words, Raphael. But words are easy. You've said many beautiful things before. Before he could respond, a soft whimper came from Sophia's room. Isabella automatically stood up, but Raphael surprised her by asking, "Can I go?" She looked at him with suspicion, but nodded. "If she cries louder, I'll go get her." Raphael walked to the room he had helped decorate when Isabella was pregnant. The pastel cloud wallpaper was still the same, but there were many more toys, children's books, and a rocking chair he didn't remember seeing before. Sophia was slowly waking up, rubbing her small eyes with clenched fists. When she saw Raphael, she stopped moving and looked at him with curiosity, without fear, but also without recognition. "Hi, little one," he whispered, approaching the crib. "You've grown so much." Sophia continued to look at him, as if trying to decipher who this unknown man was. Raphael extended his hand, and to his surprise, she grasped one of his fingers tightly. The simple, instinctive touch moved him more than any contract he had ever signed. She was his daughter who had grown up without him, who was learning to walk, to talk, to become a small, unique person, and he was missing all of it. "Sorry, Sophia," he murmured, more to himself than to her. "Daddy was very foolish, but he's here now." Sophia smiled, a toothless, genuine smile that made Raphael's heart race. She held no grudges, made no judgments. She was just a child happy to see a friendly face. When he returned to the living room carrying Sophia, he found Isabella preparing a bottle in the kitchen. "She seems calmer with you than I expected," she commented, without looking directly at him. "She's amazing, Isa. I lost so much time." "You did." The confirmation came dryly, without pity. Sophia took her first steps last week, alone, holding onto the coffee table, and yesterday she said "Mama" clearly for the first time. Every missed milestone was a stab to Raphael's conscience. He had chosen to miss them, and now there was no way to recover those unique and unrepeatable moments. "Isa, I want to come back. I want to try again." Isabella finished preparing the bottle and approached, extending her arms to take Sophia. "Raphael, that's not how it works. You can't just show up after 4 months and expect me to forget that you abandoned us." I know it will take time. I know I need to regain your trust." "It's not about regaining. It's about showing that you've changed, and change doesn't happen overnight." Sophia began to whimper, and Isabella picked her up, offering the bottle. The simple domestic scene showed Raphael how much of a stranger he had become in his own family. Isabella mastered every gesture, knew all of Sophia's needs, while he stood there like a visitor. "You can stay tonight," Isabella said, surprising him. "In the guest room, not because I forgive you, but because Sophia deserves to know her father, and you deserve to understand exactly what you abandoned." Raphael nodded, grateful for the opportunity, even though he knew it would be one of the most difficult nights of his life. Tomorrow morning, she wakes up at 6:30. She has a bottle, eats mashed fruit, plays for an hour, sleeps again until about 10. Then she has lunch, sleeps in the afternoon, and stays awake until 8 at night. You will participate in the entire routine. You will understand what it means to be a father 24 hours a day. "I want to understand." "We'll see." They spent the rest of the night in awkward silence, each pretending to watch television while Sophia played on the living room rug. Raphael tried to interact with his daughter, but realized he didn't even know how to play with an 8-month-old. He didn't know which toys she preferred, what kind of music calmed her, how to make her laugh. When Isabella put Sophia to sleep, she established the rules for their temporary cohabitation. "You sleep in the guest room. If she cries in the middle of the night, I'll take care of her. You don't know how to calm her down yet. Tomorrow you'll learn. No cell phone during the day, no work calls. If your company can't function for a day without you, then you haven't changed at all." "Understood." "And Raphael, don't get your hopes up. This doesn't mean we're getting back together. It just means I'm giving you a chance to get to know your daughter and to understand what it means to be responsible for someone other than yourself. Raphael spent the night awake in the room that had once been his office, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of the house. Isabella checking on Sophia twice during the night, the noise of cars on the street, the heavy silence of a fragmented family trying to reconnect. In the morning, he was woken by Sophia's crying at 6:28. Isabella was already up, moving around the house with the efficiency of someone who had mastered a complex routine alone. "Good morning," she said, without much enthusiasm, ready to find out what a real day in a father's life is like. Raphael got up, still dazed with sleep, but determined to prove he was there to stay. Ready. But he wasn't ready for anything he would discover about fatherhood, about Isabella, and about himself in the next 24 hours. The first lesson Raphael learned about fatherhood came at 7 in the morning, when he tried to give Sophia her bottle and she refused, pushing the bottle away with her little hands and starting to cry. "She's not hungry yet," Isabella explained, taking Sophia from his arms with a natural and precise movement. "First bottle is at 6:30. Now she wants to play a bit before eating fruit." Raphael watched Isabella place Sophia on the floor, surround her with colorful toys, and sit naturally beside her. Sophia immediately calmed down and began to explore an activity cube that made different sounds when pressed. "How do you know all this?" "Because I've been here for 8 months, Raphael. Because I learned by observing her, making mistakes, trying again." Isabella didn't look at him as she spoke, focused on Sophia. "Because when you're the only person responsible for a child, you don't have the luxury of not knowing." The indirect criticism was clear, but Raphael decided not to defend himself. Instead, he sat on the floor next to them, trying to understand how to interact with a child who reacted to him as if he were a benevolent stranger. What does she like to do? She likes music, especially that duck song that keeps repeating on television. She likes to clap her hands. She can't do it alone yet, but she smiles when I do it for her, and she likes to lie on her tummy trying to reach toys that are a little far away. Isabella demonstrated each activity, and Raphael observed how Sophia responded differently to each stimulus. It was like deciphering a completely new language, based on smiles, whimpers, body movements, and facial expressions. When Sophia started to whimper again, Isabella automatically checked the time. Now it's time for fruit. In the kitchen, Raphael watched Isabella mash a banana with a fork, mix it with a little oatmeal, and serve it on small, colorful silicone spoons. The ritual was quick and efficient, the result of months of practice. "Want to try feeding her?" Raphael nodded, but soon discovered that feeding an 8-month-old child was a task that required patience, coordination, and tolerance for mess. Sophia spat out half the food, smeared her hands and face, and seemed more interested in playing with the spoon than in eating. "Does she always make such a mess?" "Always." Isabella smiled for the first time since he had arrived. "At first I was desperate, trying to clean everything after each spoonful. Then I learned it's easier to let her get messy and clean everything at the end." There was a tenderness in Isabella's tone that Raphael hadn't heard in a long time. It was the voice of a mother, talking about her daughter, filled with unconditional love and infinite patience. After Sophia's breakfast, it was their turn to eat. Isabella prepared coffee, toast, and fruit with automatic movements, clearly accustomed to doing everything with Sophia nearby. "How do you manage to work and take care of her at the same time?" "I hired a nanny for the days I need to stay at the courthouse longer, but most of the time I bring work home. I read cases during her naps, prepare judgments after she falls asleep at night." Raphael realized that Isabella's life had completely reorganized around Sophia, while his had remained exactly the same, only with the difference of no longer having a family to return to. "Guys, it must be exhausting." "It is." The answer came simply, without self-pity. "But it's also rewarding, seeing her grow, learning new things every day, becoming a little person with her own personality. It's worth every sleepless night." Raphael's phone rang, a work call. Instinctively, he started to answer, but Isabella interrupted him with a firm look. "Remember the rules." Raphael looked at the screen, saw it was Marcus, his partner, probably calling to discuss details of the contract signed the day before. For a moment he hesitated, but then he hung up the phone and put it aside. "Sorry." Can't the company function for a day without you? It can. It's just that I have difficulty switching off. So the problem wasn't Sophia's crying, it was your inability to prioritize. The observation was accurate and painful. Raphael realized he had used Sophia as an excuse for a problem that existed long before she was born. His compulsive need to control all aspects of the company, to be available 24 hours a day, to put work above everything else. The rest of the morning passed in simple activities that to Raphael seemed as complex as international negotiations: bathing Sophia, changing diapers, putting her down for her morning nap, organizing toys. Each task required full attention, patience, and the ability to deal with unforeseen events. During Sophia's nap, Isabella finally allowed herself a deeper conversation. "Raphael, I need to tell you something." Her serious tone made him look at her attentively. They were sitting on the sofa, a safe space between them, as if marking territory in a delicate negotiation. "Last week I consulted a lawyer." Raphael felt his stomach sink, but showed no surprise. "To start divorce proceedings, to understand my rights and Sophia's rights." Isabella looked at her hands as she spoke. "I can't live in uncertainty anymore, Raphael. I can't keep waiting for you to decide if you want to be part of our family." "Isa, let me finish. I spent 4 months learning to live without you, learning to be a single mother, to make all decisions alone, to not depend on anyone, and I discovered I'm stronger than I thought." Raphael wanted to interrupt her, to say he was there precisely to change that, but he realized she needed to speak. "But I also discovered that I don't want Sophia to grow up without a father. I want her to have a present, involved father who is here not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's difficult. That's what I want too. You say that now, but what about when Sophia has a growth spurt and cries for hours? What about when she gets sick and we need to stay up all night? What about when she's a teenager and causes problems? Will you run away again?" The questions were legitimate, and Raphael had no ready answers. He only had the awareness that he had made a huge mistake and the determination not to repeat it. "I don't know how to be a good father, Isa. No one taught me. My father worked so much I barely saw him as a child. I thought being a provider was enough." "Being a father isn't instinctive, Raphael. It's a choice you make every day. It's waking up in the middle of the night even when you're exhausted. It's canceling work commitments when she needs you. It's putting her needs before your own. And you think I'm not capable of that?" Isabella looked him directly in the eyes for the first time since he had arrived. "I think you can learn, but I don't know if you're willing to pay the price." "What price?" "Giving up total control of your company, accepting that not everything will go as planned, understanding that having a family means you are no longer the center of your own universe." Raphael's phone rang again. This time he didn't even look to see who it was, just turned it off and put it on silent mode. "First lesson learned," Isabella commented with a half-smile. Sophia woke up crying, and Raphael offered to get her. When he picked her up, she looked at him with less strangeness, as if she was starting to recognize him. It was a small but significant step. "Her diaper is wet," Isabella said. "Want to learn how to change it?" The task, which seemed simple in theory, proved complicated in practice. Raphael struggled with the diaper tabs, with Sophia who wouldn't stop moving, with the coordination needed to clean, dry, and put a new diaper on a child who seemed to have developed superhuman strength in her legs. "She's testing you," Isabella laughed, watching his efforts. "Children sense when someone is insecure." Finally, Raphael managed to change the diaper, although the result was far from perfect. Sophia looked at him as if approving his effort, and he felt a satisfaction disproportionate to the size of the achievement. "Now she'll want to play until lunchtime. How about you two stay together while I prepare food?" Raphael found himself alone with Sophia for the first time since he had returned. He sat on the floor with her, trying to understand which toys sparked her interest, how to make her laugh, how to communicate with someone who didn't speak yet. That's when something happened that would forever change Raphael's perception of fatherhood. Sophia was playing with building blocks when, suddenly, she pushed herself up on both hands and feet, lifted her bottom off the floor, and took 2 shaky steps towards a toy that was a little further away. Raphael was paralyzed. These were the first steps he saw Sophia take. They weren't technically her first steps. Isabella had said it happened the week before, But they were the first he witnessed. "Isa!" he called, emotional. "Isa, come see!" Isabella rushed from the kitchen, thinking something had happened. When she saw Sophia crawling towards the toy, with Raphael filming with his phone and speaking words of encouragement, she stopped at the living room door. "She's almost walking," Raphael said, with an emotion in his voice Isabella hadn't heard in years. "Look how determined she is." Sophia managed to reach the toy and sat down, proud of her accomplishment. Raphael clapped, and she smiled broadly, as if she knew she had done something special. "She's growing so fast," Raphael murmured, more to himself than to Isabella. "That's why every day matters, Raphael. That's why you can't just be a father when it's convenient." The reprimand was fair, but this time it was accompanied by something different in Isabella's gaze. It wasn't forgiveness nor renewed trust, but perhaps it was cautious hope that Raphael was finally understanding what it meant to be a father. The rest of the day passed with Raphael learning about Sophia's nap times, food preferences, and the complex logistics of caring for a child. When night came and Sophia was put to bed, he felt exhausted in a way completely different from the fatigue of work. "How was the first day?" Isabella asked him as they prepared dinner together. "Intense, difficult, and at the same time, incredible. And tomorrow is the same routine, and the day after tomorrow too, every day for years." Raphael understood the implicit message. Fatherhood was not a project with a deadline. It was not a contract you sign and then forget. It was a daily, constant commitment that lasted a lifetime. "Isa, I want to stay. Not just tonight, not just this week. I want to come home." "This is no longer your home, Raphael." The statement hurt, but he knew it was true. He had lost the right to call that place home when he decided to abandon it. "Then I want to regain the right to call this place home." Isabella looked at him for a long moment, as if assessing the sincerity of his words. "Regaining isn't a romantic word, Raphael. Regaining is hard work. It's proving every day that you've changed. It's accepting that maybe you'll never fully recover the trust you lost." "I accept those terms. We'll see." That night, Raphael again slept in the guest room, but this time with the feeling that he had taken the first real step towards the family he wanted to rebuild. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be quick, but for the first time in months, he felt there was a possible way back home. 3 weeks had passed since Raphael's return, and the house routine had begun to find a new rhythm. He had officially moved back to Kensington, sleeping in the guest room by mutual agreement, but participating fully in Sophia's life. He woke up early, helped with meals, played on the living room floor, and had even learned to bathe his daughter without her crying. Isabella observed the changes with caution. Raphael seemed genuinely interested in being a father. He had cancelled several work trips and even delegated important meetings to stay home when Sophia had a cold the previous week. But a part of her remained on guard, waiting for the moment he would revert to his old patterns. At the company, Raphael had implemented drastic changes. He promoted Marcus, his partner, to executive director, transferring a significant portion of operational responsibilities. He established fixed work hours and created clear policies on when he could be contacted outside of work. The changes were not well received by all clients, but Raphael discovered that he had competent employees who had been underutilized due to his need to control everything personally. "So you seem more relaxed," Isabella commented one Saturday morning, as they watched Sophia play in the park near the building. "I'm sleeping better," Raphael admitted, pushing Sophia's stroller. "Work has weekends now. I had forgotten how good it is not to think about spreadsheets and contracts for a few hours. And the company is surviving without your micromanagement. It's functioning better, actually. I discovered I have a much more capable team than I gave credit for." Sophia had started to stand up, leaning on the stroller, trying to take steps on her own. Each new achievement of hers was celebrated by both of them as a shared victory, and Raphael felt that he was finally participating in his daughter's development instead of just receiving reports via messages. "Raphael," Isabella said, stopping walking, "there's something I need to tell you." Her serious tone immediately alerted Raphael. He knew Isabella well enough to know that when she used that formal voice, she was about to discuss something important. "The divorce papers are still with me." Raphael felt his stomach tighten, but tried to maintain a neutral expression. "I know. I haven't submitted them yet because Because I want to be sure that you've really changed. Not just for a few weeks, but for good. What can I do to prove it? Time, Raphael. That's all that can prove real change. Time and consistency. They returned home in contemplative silence, each processing the conversation differently. Raphael saw the divorce papers as a sword hanging over his head, a constant reminder that he had lost rights he needed to regain. Isabella saw them as protection, a reminder that she had options if Raphael decided to give up again. That afternoon, while Sophia napped, the home phone rang. It was a number Raphael didn't recognize, but Isabella answered it naturally. Hello? The voice on the other end was female, low, hesitant. Raphael only heard fragments of Isabella's conversation. Yes, he's here. No problem. Hospital. Which hospital? Isabella's tone changed abruptly, becoming more serious, more urgent. Understood. Yes? We'll go there now. When she hung up, Raphael saw genuine concern in her eyes. It was someone from St. Thomas Hospital, a woman named Felicity. Isabella hesitated. She said she listed your name as an emergency contact and that she's in serious condition. Raphael was paralyzed. Felicity. He hadn't heard that name in years since she had simply disappeared from his life without explanation. Raphael, do you know this person? Isabella's question echoed in the silence of the room, but Raphael seemed to have lost the ability to speak. Raphael? Yes, I know her. I know Felicity. Who is she? The honesty Raphael had promised himself when he decided to return home was now being tested in the cruelest possible way. She was someone important to me. Before I met you, Isabella studied him for a moment that seemed eternal. Important how? We had a relationship about 6 years ago. It lasted almost 2 years, but she disappeared. Literally. One day she was there, the next she was gone. She left her apartment, changed her phone, and I never heard from her again. And why would she have your name as an emergency contact if you haven't spoken in years? It was a logical question, and Raphael had no answer. I don't know, Isa. I have no idea. Isabella remained silent for a few minutes, clearly processing the information and its implications. We're going to the hospital, she finally decided. Sophia and I will stay in the car. You'll find out what this woman wants and why she listed your name as an emergency contact. The drive to the hospital was tense and silent. Raphael drove while his mind raced with possibilities and memories he had buried years ago. Felicity had been his most intense relationship before meeting Isabella. They had plans to live together, to build something lasting, until the day she simply disappeared without explanation. At the time, Raphael had tried to find her. He contacted mutual friends, went to her apartment, even hired a private detective, but Felicity had completely vanished, as if she had never existed. After months of fruitless searching, he gave up and moved on with his life. At the hospital, Isabella remained in the car with Sophia while Raphael went to the reception. I'm looking for Felicity Mendonza. I received a call saying she was admitted and listed my name as a contact. The receptionist checked the system and directed him to the 5th floor, neurology ward. Raphael went up in the elevator with his heart pounding, not knowing what he would find. When he reached the 5th floor, a nurse approached him. Are you Raphael Montero? Yes. The patient is in room 512. She specifically asked to speak with you when you arrived. Raphael walked down the hospital corridor, feeling as if he were in a strange dream. When he reached room 512, he hesitated before knocking on the door. Come in. A weak voice came from inside. Raphael pushed the door open and found himself face to face with Felicity after 6 years of separation. She was visibly thinner, paler, with her head partially shaved and a recent scar indicating brain surgery. Hi, Raphael. Felicity. What? How are you? Dying, she said with a brutal honesty that caught him off guard. Brain tumor. They tried to operate, but it didn't work. Raphael approached the bed, shocked by her condition and the surreal situation. Why did you disappear? Why did you never look for me? Because I was pregnant, Felicity said, looking directly into his eyes. And I was afraid of your reaction. Raphael felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Pregnant? Mine? Ours? Felicity smiled weakly. I was sure you would want me to have an abortion. You always said you weren't ready for children, that you wanted to focus on your career first. Felicity, I left because I wanted to have the baby, and I knew that if I stayed, you would convince me otherwise, or worse, you would take responsibility out of obligation and end up hating the child. Raphael sat in the chair beside the bed, trying to process the information. Where is the child now? With my sister, in Brighton. It's a boy, Gabriel. He's 4.5 years old. Raphael remained silent for several minutes, looking at Felicity and trying to understand the magnitude of what he was discovering. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm dying. Raphael, and Gabriel will be an orphan. My sister has 2 small children and can't take on another. I have no one else. The implication was clear, but Raphael needed to hear it explicitly. I want you to meet your son, and if you want, I want you to take care of him. Felicity reached out and grabbed a bag from the bedside table, taking out some photographs. These are from last year. He looks like you. Raphael took the photos with trembling hands. The boy in the photographs had his eyes, his face shape, even the same crooked smile he made as a child. There was no doubt that Gabriel was his son. Does he know about me? He knows he has a father. He doesn't know who you are or where you are. I always said that one day he would meet you. Raphael looked at the photographs again. Gabriel was in a playground, playing, smiling at the camera with genuine joy. He was his son, a son who had existed for 4.5 years without him knowing. Felicity, I need to think. This is too much. I know. It's a lot to process. Felicity closed her eyes for a moment, clearly exhausted. But time is running out, Raphael. The doctors said I have a few weeks, maybe months. What if I can't take care of him? Then he'll go up for adoption. But I wanted to give you the chance to choose. Raphael put the photographs away and stood up, feeling completely lost. I need to talk to my family. You have a family now. I have a daughter. And it's complicated. Felicity nodded, understanding that there was much more complexity in his life than she had imagined. Raphael, I'm sorry I disappeared like that. I was scared, and I made the wrong decision. You did what you thought was best. I did, but now I need to do what's best for Gabriel, and I think meeting his father is what's best for him. Raphael promised he would return the next day and left the hospital with his head spinning. When he reached the car, Isabella immediately realized that something serious had happened. What's wrong? Raphael looked at Sophia, sleeping peacefully in her car seat, and then at Isabella. I have a son. The phrase came out simple, direct, but carried the weight of a bomb detonating in the silence of the car. What do you mean you have a son? Felicity was pregnant when she disappeared. She had the baby and raised him alone for 4 years. Now she's dying and wants me to take care of him. Isabella remained silent for a time that seemed endless. When she finally spoke, her voice was controlled, but Raphael could perceive the tension behind her apparent calm. And are you going to? I don't know, Isa. I need to meet him first. I need to understand what this means for us. For us? Isabella laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Raphael, you've barely proven you can be a father to Sophia. Now another child appears and you're considering taking responsibility. He's my son, Isabella. And Sophia is your daughter too. And you abandoned her when things got difficult. The argument that followed was the most intense they had since Raphael returned. Isabella questioned his ability to be a father to 2 children when he had failed with one. Raphael argued that he couldn't simply ignore Gabriel's existence. When they arrived home, the atmosphere was heavy, like a storm about to break. Isabella, I understand your concern, but... No, Raphael, you don't understand. Isabella turned to him in the living room, with Sophia still sleeping in her arms. You spent 4 months away from your own daughter because you couldn't handle the responsibility of being a father. Now a son you don't know appears, and you want to take responsibility. It's different. How is it different? Because now I know what I lose when I abandon a child, because I know how much it hurts not to be present. I can't do to Gabriel what I did to Sophia. Isabella looked at him for a long moment, and Raphael saw in her eyes a mixture of anger, fear, and disappointment. You're going to meet him, she finally said, but the tone was an affirmation, not a question. Because you need to know who this boy is before making any decision. Isa, but I'm coming with you. I won't let you make another impulsive decision that affects Sophia's life. Raphael nodded, knowing he had no choice, and perhaps it was better that way. Perhaps Isabella could help him make the right decision. But deep down, he knew that regardless of what he discovered about Gabriel, his life had just become infinitely more complicated. The trip to Brighton the following Saturday was made in almost complete silence. Sophia slept in her car seat, oblivious to the tension that hung between Raphael and Isabella. They had spent the entire week talking about the situation, sometimes arguing, sometimes just silently processing the complexity of what was happening. Isabella had insisted on accompanying Raphael not out of curiosity, but out of protection. Protection for Sophia, protection for herself, and perhaps even protection for Raphael from his own impulsive decisions. "Have you thought about what you're going to say to him?" Isabella asked as they entered the city. "I thought of several things, but honestly, I don't know how you explain to a 4-year-old that you're the father he's never met." Helen, Felicity's sister, lived in a middle-class residential neighborhood, a simple, well-maintained house with a front garden and toys scattered in the backyard. It was the kind of place where a normal family would raise happy children. Helen received them at the door with a cautious expression. She was visibly younger than Felicity. With similar but less refined features, she carried a girl of about 2 years old in her arms, while a boy of about 5 hid behind her legs when he saw the strangers. "You must be Raphael and Isabella." "That's right," Raphael confirmed. "Thank you for having us. Come in, please. Gabriel is in the backyard." The house inside was cozy, but clearly small to accommodate 3 children. Toys occupied every available corner, and Helen looked exhausted, the universal expression of overwhelmed mothers. "He knows you're coming today," Helen explained as they walked towards the backyard. "I told him his father wanted to meet him. He was excited, but also nervous." Through the glass of the back door, Raphael saw Gabriel in person for the first time. The boy was crouched in a makeshift sandbox, building castles with total concentration. He was exactly as in the photographs, but seeing him moving, breathing, laughing to himself as he played, made everything surprisingly real. "He looks like you," Isabella murmured, holding Sophia, who had woken up and was observing everything with baby curiosity. "Gabriel," Helen called, opening the door. "Someone here wants to meet you." The boy looked up from his play and fixed his gaze on Raphael. For a moment, they just looked at each other, father and son instinctively recognizing each other. "Are you my dad?" Gabriel asked with surprising naturalness. Raphael crouched down to be at the boy's height. "I am. My name is Raphael." "I knew you'd come," Gabriel said, smiling. "Aunt Felicity always said you'd come for me one day." The childish simplicity of the statement moved Raphael more than any adult declaration could. Gabriel held no grudges, asked no complex questions about why it had taken so long. For him, his father had arrived at the right time. "And who is she?" Gabriel asked, pointing to Isabella. "This is Isabella, and this little one is Sophia, your sister." Gabriel approached Isabella with curiosity. "Can I see her?" Isabella crouched down, allowing Gabriel to see Sophia up close. The girl, always sociable, smiled at the boy and extended one of her little hands. "She liked me," Gabriel exclaimed, delighted. "Can I play with her?" "Of course," Isabella said, surprised by the ease of the encounter. They spent the entire afternoon in the backyard. Gabriel showed his toys to Raphael, told him about school, about his friends, about how he took care of his mother when she was sad. The way a child interpreted Felicity's illness, Raphael discovered that Gabriel was intelligent, articulate for his age, and affectionate. He also discovered that the boy knew much more about his mother's situation than Helen imagined. "Our mummy's going to heaven, right?" Gabriel asked suddenly, as they played with toy cars. The question caught Raphael off guard. "Why do you think that?" "Because she got very sick. And when people get very sick, they go to heaven so they don't feel pain anymore." Raphael looked at Isabella, who was playing with Sophia on the nearby grass. She had also heard the question and showed the same perplexity about how to answer. "Gabriel, your mother is in the hospital being cared for by doctors." "I know, but she's not going to get better, is she?" The childish honesty was both touching and devastating. Raphael decided on the truth. "We don't know yet, Gabriel. But no matter what happens, you'll be safe, you'll be cared for. Will you take care of me? The question Raphael had been avoiding all week was asked with disconcerting simplicity. How would you like me to take care of you? Gabriel nodded vigorously. I always wanted a real dad, and now I have a dad and a sister. During lunch, Raphael talked with Helen about the practical situation. Felicity had left few possessions, a small savings account and some personal items. Gabriel attended a local primary school nearby, had friends, had an established life. I can take care of him for a few more weeks, Helen said. But honestly, with my 2 small children and my husband unemployed, we can't afford to take on another child permanently. I understand, Raphael said, and I appreciate everything you've done for him. On the way back to London, Gabriel slept in the back seat next to Sophia's car seat, as if he had been part of the family for years. What do you think? Raphael asked Isabella. Think of him. He's amazing, Raphael. He's affectionate, intelligent, and clearly loves you without even knowing you properly. But, there's no but. Isabella looked out the window before continuing. The question isn't whether Gabriel is a wonderful child. The question is whether you're prepared to be a father to 2 children at the same time. And you? Are you prepared to help raise another woman's child? Isabella was silent for several miles. You know what impressed me most today, she finally said. How Sophia and Gabriel interacted, how gentle he was with her, how she smiled at him. They are siblings, Raphael, true siblings. Is that a yes? It's a, let's try. It's a, you have to prove you can be a real father now. It's a, we can't make any more mistakes because now there are 2 children depending on us. 2 weeks later, Felicity died peacefully in her sleep. Raphael was by her bedside, holding her hand when she passed. He had forgiven the past and thanked her for preserving Gabriel's life, even if it meant years of separation. The funeral was small, just Raphael, Isabella, Helen, and a few people who had worked with Felicity. Gabriel stayed home with a nanny, considered too young to fully understand what was happening. How are you going to explain it to him? Helen asked after the ceremony. With the truth, Raphael said. That his mother is no longer sick, that she is at peace, and that now he has a new family that will love him forever. The conversation with Gabriel was one of the most difficult of Raphael's life. The boy cried, asked questions that had no answers, but also showed surprising maturity in accepting the situation. I'm going to miss Mummy, he said, nestled in Raphael's lap. But she said you would take care of me, and now I have you, Isabella and Sophia. The adaptation was neither immediate nor easy. Gabriel had nightmares in the first few weeks, moments of deep sadness, and temper tantrums that tested everyone's patience. But he also brought joy, laughter, and a childlike energy that completely transformed the atmosphere of the house. Sophia and Gabriel developed a special bond. He became the protective older brother, always attentive to her needs, always willing to share toys and attention. Sophia, in turn, looked at Gabriel with genuine admiration and affection. Raphael discovered that being a father to 2 children was exponentially more complex than being a father to 1. It demanded more energy, more patience, more organization. But he also discovered that love does not divide. It multiplies. Isabella surprised everyone, especially herself, by quickly adapting to the role of Gabriel's mother. She didn't try to replace Felicity, but offered the unconditional love and stability a child needed. 6 months after Felicity's death, Raphael found Isabella in the kitchen one Sunday morning, preparing breakfast while watching Gabriel and Sophia play in the living room. Isa, he said, hugging her from behind, I have a question for you. If it's about increasing Gabriel's allowance, the answer is no. 4 years old is too young to learn about financial negotiation. Raphael laughed. It's not about allowance, it's about us. Isabella turned in his arms. What about us? Do you still have those divorce papers? I do. What do you say we tear them up and start over? Officially, Isabella looked into his eyes, searching for signs of the insecurity and instability that had made her prepare the papers months earlier. But she found only determination and love. Rafael Montero, are you asking me to marry you again? I'm asking you to give me another chance to be the husband you deserve, and the father our children deserve. Our children. Sophia is my daughter. Gabriel is my son, and both are children of our love, even if in different ways. Isabella smiled, and it was the first smile completely free of caution Raphael had seen in months. The answer is yes, but this time we do everything differently. This time we build a family conscious of what we are doing. They remarried 3 months later, in an intimate ceremony in their garden. Gabriel was the page boy, carrying the rings with adorable seriousness. Sophia was the flower girl, carried in Helen's arms, who had become a constant presence in their lives. The house in Kensington was renovated to accommodate the new family configuration. The guest room became Gabriel's room, decorated by him with drawings taped to the walls. The toy office was expanded to be shared by the siblings. Raphael learned that family is not just about biology or even about choice. It's about daily commitment, about constant presence, about love that adapts and grows in the face of challenges. A year later, on a sunny Saturday morning, Raphael woke up to Gabriel and Sophia jumping on the bed. "Daddy, Daddy," Sophia said my name. Gabriel exclaimed, radiant. "How so?" She said Gabby. She said Gabby. Raphael looked at Sophia, who smiled as if she knew exactly what she had done. "Gabby," she repeated, looking directly at her brother. Gabriel hugged her gently, as Raphael had taught him. "Now she knows I'm her brother." Isabella appeared at the bedroom door, already dressed for the day, smiling at the scene. "Good morning, family," she said, and the word family sounded different now. It sounded complete. Raphael got up and hugged everyone at once. Isabella, Gabriel, Sophia, his imperfect, complex family, built from losses and new beginnings, but genuinely his. "Good morning," he replied, and for the first time in years, it really was a good morning. It was the beginning of many good mornings. Outside, London awoke to another day of traffic, haste, and commitments. But inside that house in Kensington, a family had found its rhythm, its place, its peace. Raphael looked out the window and smiled. It had taken him a long time to understand, but he finally knew. True success was not measured in signed contracts or bank accounts. It was measured in good morning hugs, in laughter at breakfast, in peaceful nights knowing that the people he loved most were safe by his side. He had wasted time, he had made mistakes, he had hurt people he loved, but he had also learned to be a father, had regained the love of his life, and had discovered that family is the only thing truly worth building. And this time, he wasn't going anywhere.